I think that's wonderful. So first of all, the pursuit of perfection is exhausting and you're never going to get there. The pursuit of connection can also be exhausting, but you can get there.
You can achieve it.
You can achieve it.
And once you achieve it, it will be replenishing.
Yes.
It will no longer be exhausting.
Yes, exactly. In a healthy relationship, it's replenishing with like little pockets of exhausting, but it's all offset by this restores me. This
Yes.
connection restores me.
Yep.
Which the pockets of exhausting is just my way of saying healthy relationships take work, but it's worth it.
Well, and frankly, at least for me, I don't know if there's any research to back this up. The pockets of exhausting are generally me working on my own shit so that I can maintain the connection. Like the connection is there and it's going to be fine, but it's me having to go, oh, I'm in the wrong. I have to work on that.
Yes, I would agree. In my own personal experience, that's been what I felt as well.
Yeah.
Hello. So today I'm going to talk about a minor gripe against cinema therapy, because I saw through one of his videos and like I was looking at it and I saw this thing coming. So it's a pretty, it is a pretty wholesome message, and I personally think I genuinely find relationships more pleasing to me than not having a relationship. But I do want to point out like two specific ones. The first one is, perfection and power is overrated.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful. So first of all, the pursuit of perfection is exhausting and you're never going to get there. The pursuit of connection can also be exhausting, but you can get there.
You can achieve it.
You can achieve
and
it.
once you achieve it, it will be replenishing.
Yes.
It will no longer be exhausting.
Yes, exactly.
I feel like you are like showing implicit bias to your wording towards perfection, any sort of perfection and power. Now, granted, most perfection and power, I discussed it with a certain machine, and she agrees that, Mr. Jonathan and Mr. Allen, right? Mr. Seawright and Mr. Decker here usually refers to the egoic pursuit of control or status of flawlessness and dominance over life, people, or outcomes. And I can agree that most of these things are harmful because usually they violate one of the seven major things below, right? No harming another person, no harming beings, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, harming beings, stealing, lying, snitching, abuse, and covetousness of requisites, right? So, yes, you would say in most contexts that perfection and power is overrated, and it's kind of a... So, I think it's a good message, but I think the first one is that they were showing, their wording was showing implicit bias against people who want to pursue, they were showing implicit bias against like any sort or any form of perfection and power, when in reality, while the majority of the pursuits of perfection and power are indeed harmful, there are certain forms that doesn't really do harm to anyone or anything, like honestly. Like, let's say, getting rich, decently rich, not extremely, right, obviously, decently, right, decently rich, having a, planting trees, protecting the environment as well, right, these are pursuits of perfection and power, right, in the form, like, in a more philosophical perspective, right? Or in Buddhism context, or like certain religions, right? I don't know if certain religions, but in ancient India, certain religions, right, really have developed the faculties of psychic powers, right? So that's also a thing. But that also doesn't harm anyone. So I do think that the important thing of pursuing perfection and power is that it's not inherently wrong to pursue perfection and power. The major thing is that when you don't get it, you will stay virtuous and maintain your restraint of speech and action, right? So that is why it's important to have certain things to restrain yourself. It's like training in frugality. So something like no harming, no stealing, no sexual misconducts, no lying, no snitching, no abuse, and no covetousness of requisites, right? So that is important. So I feel like that is the first point, because they were just outright rejecting, at least their wording was silently implying that they were outright rejecting all forms of perfection and power. And when in reality, there could be a lot of forms of perfection and power that are inherently not harmful at all, right? So that is important, the first thing. So the second point they pointed out that is that, connection, connection is the fundamental purpose of a person, of any person. When in reality, some people, at least I know a significant amount of people, like at least like 8 or 9 people that really enjoy solitude and not really having any significant relationships. So that's important. Now, for me, it is important for me to have it is. I do find generally romantic relationships pleasing rather than not having a relationship, whether it's romance or marriage. But I can get the sentiment of people who want to enjoy solitude because I've been practicing Brahma meditation or Samatha meditation for a long time. And I can definitely see that some people may want to enjoy solitude. Some people just don't like to be proactively pursuing any new relationships, right? Maybe they can, maintain the existing relationships, majorly their parents, but otherwise they enjoy solitude and celibacy, right? And there are at least 8 or 9 audiences that enjoy being alone, right? And so I think it's okay to let some people be alone, right? That is why there's the thing called Brahma meditation. Hold up, let me check. Because, on one hand, Brahma meditation or serenity meditation, we call samatha meditation in Buddhism. It's also called serenity meditation. So it's not actually, that one is more like you try to master your emotions in relationships. That's what Brahma meditation essentially means. So not only there's that too, so that you won't, because there are so many topics talk about grief and loss in relationships when people died, right? And how do you handle grief and loss? I don't know so far as it was universally, but I've seen through a lot of experiences. None of them lands outside of scope of Brahma meditation to master those emotions. So I think that does work in a lot of contexts at the very least. So that's one thing. You can master your emotion. You can master over your grief, right? And the other one is, I think it was, hold on, let me check. Brahma Vihara, right? Hold on, let me check. So this is important. So I don't think it was to abandon relationships. One, I think you need to master your emotions. And, if people died or old age or it's kind of like handle grief, right? I think it's a good way to handle emotions or mastering your emotions, or how do you say it? Emotional intelligence. I don't know if that fits, but I think I just feel like it fits, right? Terminology wise. And so here's one thing. Okay, I have confirmed that. The other one is that they, in general, let's say you do some kind of Brahma Vihara or something like, spreading the emotion of love and, heartwarming, and kind of like you spread your love emotionally towards other beings in general through meditation. There is a way for people, even people who enjoy being alone, can connect with people through relationship is through this Brahma meditation. The specific one is Brahma Vihara, the 4 adopts of Brahma. Loving kindness or benevolence is the first one. Compassion, empathetic joy or rejoice the third one, and equanimity the fourth one. So I think I personally enjoy relationships more than not enjoying them, and I can definitely agree that is a significant amount of people who needs that kind of relationships to really feel joy in their emotional life. So that is not wrong, and I think they put it accurately, like both Mr. Deca and Mr. C, right? But I think not only, right, there's I don't know if they handle loss of grief well. I do believe they do, but at least from what I seen through the video so far, it doesn't really help me handle like obviously no one died in my in my surroundings, but it doesn't feel like a good idea. But Brahma meditation does. And even then, there's always they have the good idea, so that is not a bad thing. They have a good idea already to need to handle loss and grief. And so the one way that I know by experience that works really well is, I don't have the direct experience, but I trust my teachers. And to be fair, my teachers went through that kind of training, and they do it incredibly well in their relationships with their students. So it's called Brahma meditation, right? This is the second point of the first half. The second half is that even if you say many people do enjoy companionship, which is not wrong, probably is correct, but there are always going to be a significant amount of people they just enjoy being alone. They're not narcissists. They literally just enjoy being alone, or solitude, or celibacy. So you can't really force your opinions on them. And also, there's a way for them to connect with other beings in a more general communal context, even if they don't really enjoy any form of relationships, right? They don't hate on other people. They just like being alone, right? So this is a way to help them really, still have a somewhat connection with other beings without being any malice or ill will at the very least. Which is the 4 abodes of Brahma, the loving kindness, compassion, rejoice, and equanimity thing. So yeah. So I think their message was good, but their wording, at least the terminology, from what they speak, they were silently implying biases towards any form of perfection and power and the people who genuinely enjoy being alone. And even I sometimes also enjoy being alone sometimes, even though most of the time I do enjoy companionship.
In my opinion, Sneeko is just an anti-establishment bot. There's no nuance to his views. He doesn't think before he speaks. Even though he used to when he was younger, he just takes whatever the mainstream media wants you to believe and then instantly believes the opposite. But what he fails to realize is that propaganda exists in both the mainstream narratives and the conspiracy narratives.
And the last point I wanted to point out is that this is from the King of Nothing. So I do want to give a shout out to the channel King of Nothing. Let me check the... it's called... He has the handle the YouTube Goat. And then it was about the video, the horrifying downfall of Sneeko, right? Red Pill Gone Wrong video. But I wasn't specifically talking about Sneeko. It's that there were two terminologies that really stand out to me: the mainstream narratives and establishment narratives. And this one hand is the mainstream and or the establishment narratives, and the other side is the conspiracy narratives. And I think establishment narratives. Let me put it in an analogy. Establishment biases is kind of like training, right? Like training in frugality, like perfection and power, right? But you have training in frugality so that even if you don't get, you don't manage to always plant the trees that you wanted to plant, or getting getting the resources, or being rich, right? Or like being in the most pleasing environment, you still won't get extremely upset over it, right? So that is training in frugality, and the other side is training in Brahma meditation, the emotional mastery, right? Training in emotional mastery. So this is important that you establishing narratives are kind of like training in either of those things, whereas conspiracy narratives are like you need to, it's to chase after what makes you happy, right? It's kind of like an analogy, but the thing is that usually indeed, establishment narratives deserve a lot more respect, but they don't deserve a lot more respect because they are inherently superior. People should always pursue what makes them happy, whether physically, like the perfection and power, pleasing sights, sensations, sounds, tastes, smells, ideas, etc. And the other side is emotionally, whereas relationships, like the relationships, romance, marriage, platonic friendships, right? But usually they gain a lot of respect because there's a shift in both the perspective and the rapture about their happiness, about what makes them happy. So maybe a person a long time ago really likes to have a harem relationship, and they like to be extremely rich. But once they start to train themselves, right? They don't deny or object pursuing pleasing sights or relationships, right? Or pleasing senses or smells, right? I put them as senses, right? Sights, smells, taste as senses. Pleasing senses or relationships, but they train themselves in frugality and emotional mastery, i.e. Brahma meditation, so that they, at least when they don't get what they want, they won't be upset, right? They won't be upset to the point where they will curse another person or kill another person, right? And then over time, it shifts in perspective, both the perspective and the rapture emotion, and that they now start to find the things in those training make them feel happy, right? So I think this is the way that establishment narratives deserves respect, is if it was practiced this way, not because establishment narratives and mainstream narratives or like the hierarchy narratives are inherently superior. It's because through training from what they find pleasing, and then they shift in perspective and rapture emotions, that they now find the things in those trainings to be tolerable, acceptable, and even pleasing, and felt joy about them. So I think that's important about that. So this is the end of my video. Thank you for watching today. I might edit this a little bit more because this first video I was just getting so itchy all the time when I'm talking about this. So thank you for watching. Goodbye. So this is why also something like, people who have a profession about the four requisites, and this is an afterthought, by the way. So this is why usually people who has a profession of the four requisites, the food, clothing, farmers, carpenters, right, builders, and food, clothing, shelters, and doctors, right, not doctors, medicine manufacturers deserve a lot of respect because they need to do things that are very important to that one. That's more like a establishment narratives and mainstream narratives, right? I'm not saying people should just do some things like these. All people should do, but give more respect to people who are willing to do these types of stuff. Even if they do find it enjoyment in getting the profession of the four requisites, because like I said, this is very important to make sure people don't starve to death at the very least. So I think that is a extra PSA. I'm not sure PSA, a personal statement, a personal note or something. So yeah. All right. Thank you. Goodbye.